travelers, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Teyvat, a Genshin Lore Podcast. Last week, we drowned ourselves in the history and drama of the Narcissus and Cruz saga in Fontaine.
Ula, upsa sara beru kazu Dadaupa domu, unu dualipa, sile dada, mini nu.
For travelers that don't speak Hilichurlian, Al said, hello, we're preparing to talk about the mighty Dadaupa Gorge and the three tribes.
Yeah.
Looking for a screech fest that speaks to your soul? Head on over to our website, talesofteyvat.com, your repository for visuals that pair with our audio nonsense.
Our site also includes links to our past seasons and special episodes, artist spotlights from the community for every episode, and wallpapers to download.
Finally, feel free to email us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com. Tell us what you think of this week's episode and what topics you'd like to see in the future. So, Dadaupa Gorge, best known for Land of the Hilichurls.
You mean Dualipa?
Oh, or Dualipa. That's what we honestly
Gorge.
call it usually. Yeah, we got a Dualipa over the gorge. Honestly, Dualipa would probably befriend the Hilichurls.
When are we gonna get a Dualipa stream of Genshin? Look, she could probably fucking whale on this entire fucking game.
I mean, only if she knew there was a whole gorge named after herself, she might be like, okay.
I wonder if she would be, what main would she be? She'd probably be
She'd be official main.
Fischl or Yaimiko. She'd be something like off the beaten path.
Candace, maybe.
Ooh, I like it.
Alloy main.
No!
I'm boiling.
Sorry, bae. So Dadaupa Gorge.
So, Dadaupa, Dualipa, whatever we decide to call it during this episode, is a small location in Genshin, in Mondstadt specifically, in the area of Galesong Hill, which is like northeast of Dragonspine and west of the little Musk Reef, right under the Falcon Coast.
Mm-hmm. And we are levitating.
Hold up. What?
Oh my god.
What the fuck did you?
The Dualipa reference.
No.
It's her best song.
It is, Brandon. You're right. It is. That was fantastic.
If you want to run away with me, we can go to Dadaupa Gorge. So, Dadaupa Gorge, home to 3 of the tribes of Hilichurls, which is weird because outside of Dadaupa Gorge, I feel like we hear nothing about Hilichurl tribes.
Yeah, this is probably the largest collection of Hilichurl encampments because we have so many throughout Teyvat. We have the one I'm thinking of is the really high, like elevated settlement of Hilichurls in Liyue. We've got a bunch of like smaller encampments in like Inazuma and Sumeru and Fontaine. But this is probably the largest collection of settlements, and it stands out only after you go through the expansions of the game, like all the updates, and you realize, I don't see that many Hilichurls around here until we get to the chasm. But that's that's another part we'll get into.
Yeah, the chasm is a wild ride for Hilichurls. That's where we find out that maybe, just maybe, we should be nicer to them.
I mean, we should. They are our friends. We shouldn't kill them, but they will respawn. But yeah, outside of the chasm, outside of like underground in the overworld, this is probably the largest collection of Hilichurls.
Oh yeah, definitely. And also in Dadaupa Gorge, we have something called the Sword Cemetery, which we will get into in a little bit. But what else is going on in Dadaupa Gorge just on the surface level? There's a lot of swords, there's a lot of Hilichurls. I think Dr. Livingston lives there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that bitch has stayed. She starts your quest, you go back afterwards. The Sword Cemetery has a seal, 3 seals. Got it, 3 tribes, 3 seals. And you finish all that, and then she stays. Like, there's still some other things you can do with her. I haven't done this quest in a very long time, since it was a very early one for me. I was like, let me go see if she's still there. And that bitch is still there. She is still sitting there, all relaxing. You could talk to her.
Mm-hmm. She's a true friend's broas.
And she's friends with Dr. Edith, right?
Yes. I mean, they're both doctors and adventurers, of course.
Well, they're anthropologists is what they are. I mean, she's literally doing ethnographies on the Hilichurls. A lot like how Ella Musk is doing her own linguistic ethnology on them, which that's a lot of terminology. Travelers. I have a bachelor's in anthropology. I'm so sorry. We're going to get really into it.
Let us have it.
Yes, let's go. Because linguistic anthropology, the entirety of the community, especially Elon Musk, aka Ella Musk, who's like a true linguistic anthropologist, but Nemi83 on Reddit has become a linguistic guru, is how I can speak Hilichurlian. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be very fun.
Well, okay. So then let's talk a little bit about the tribes. So we have 3 tribes over in Dadaupa Gorge. They all are separated out into their own individual areas. Some of them are more closed off. The one area is a little larger. So you have the Sleepy tribe, the Eclipse tribe, and the Meaty tribe. Which, like, how did Meaty and Sleepy both draw the short end of the stick for names?
Yeah, I mean, they're like, oh, this guy likes to eat a lot. He must be the meaty tribe. This one sleeps all the time. Sleeper tribe.
Sleep, sleep.
And these guys are just cool as fuck.
Yeah. I have to say it's one of, and I think I made the mention in our last episode about when we were talking about timelines and stuff, and because of Hilichurls and where they came from. But I was very surprised to actually learn that Hilichurls have been around before the Cataclysm. They've been around for thousands of years, especially the meaty and the sleepy tribes. They just became very plentiful after the Cataclysm.
What?
Yeah, they actually were always there.
What?
I know. Mind blown.
It's just super interesting, just considering like our knowledge of Hilichurls is that they were created as a curse.
Yeah, I think that it was more so that the Conrians were cursed to be Hilichurls than that they turned, like they began the Hilichurlian kind of thing.
What?
It was kind of like, here are these, like they used to, I think Ella refers to them in when you finish a bunch of Hilichurl quests, you get a name card for it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a description, and Ella actually is quoted in it of saying that people called them hill devils, but she wants them to be called hill dwellers because they're not actually all bad.
Yeah, they're hill folk.
Oh, here, the Hilichurl description in the archive says, the primitive wandering inhabitants of Teyvat's wildernesses, they look very similar to humanity, but have seemed to have lost both their intellect and spirituality. Their presence on the continent has been recorded for over 1,000 years, and yet they have neither
What?
history nor civilization.
Oh my God.
Since the Pinch Black calamity from 500 years ago, they have begun to spread in large numbers across the land. They are not very strong and they lack organization, but they nonetheless bring sizable trouble to humans every once in a while.
What the hell?
This calls into question of like why, because we know the Conrians were cursed to become Hilichurls. Why did the person who laid this curse onto the Conrians pick Hilichurls in general? They could have picked slimes. They could have picked, any other like Teyvat monster-esque creature. Like hell, they could have been the little like fucking mosquitoes, the Electro girl who's always like hot.
If we can assume that it was Celestia or some gods or whatever that were mad at Conria, they looked and said, here, we think these guys are really dumb. They still have to walk around. They still have to do stuff. They still have to survive, but they're stupid. Like I think they were looking at it and they said that, well, we're going to turn you into that, because it's not just a matter of turning them into something, but making them suffer.
Which makes sense, because if we go with the theory that the Conrians rebelled against the heavens, aka the divine principles, they would have wanted them to be the most obedient and like non-mindful thing.
Are you ready to join Team Dragon, Feeny? Or no?
Fucking the dragons will rule. I swear to God.
There's not 2 teams here. There are at least 3. But if you think back to the creation theory that we've talked about a little bit before in Teyvat, where, we know that the primordial one came down or hatched or whatever you want your theory to be about the primordial one, but they came, conquered the dragons, and then they created Teyvat. Honestly, it reminds me of Shen Yun, the creation theory, but that's neither here nor there. And we hear about them making the humans and bringing humans to Teyvat, and it says more so bringing humans, but creating the seas and the hills and blah, blah, blah. It would almost make sense if the Hilichurls have been their way of managing bad people for years. The first nation that ever fought back became a Hilichurl.
Yeah. The one thing was saying.
It makes me think that the unified kingdom all became Hilichurls. It would make sense why there's Hilichurls in Enkanomiya.
So they were like conquistadors?
Oh my god. That brings in a whole nother level.
Uka is the character with the princess box and with the Salvin Dagner. And that's the one that makes a reference to, like, hey, you shouldn't just think that this happened with Conria.
Right. That is something we've never even brought up before. And we read a lot of lore.
Yeah.
And we read a lot of theories. And no one is really talking about this. This is a little strange.
I feel like it's so easy to disregard the importance of Hilichurls and like this history because they're one of the very first enemies we fight. They're some of the easiest enemies that we have to fight, unfortunately. I mean, majority of travelers who like began Genshin probably saw like a lot of different enemies because they had so much more range to explore. But when you just start this game, you've got Hilichurl after Hilichurl after Hilichurl, other than one Eye of the Storm. So it's easy, like, I've seen them so many times, like, they don't mean nothing. They do. They, especially like when we get into the Chasm storyline and what we've learned, the fact that the Khamrian people were cursed. And now we know it's possible that the people of the unified nation or even of prior Dragonspine,
Salvin Dagner, and probably even more places than that, have been cursed to become Hilichurls. And it's so interesting because like we think they're dumb and complicit and like kind of hanging around waiting to do shit. But there's a lot more intelligence behind them than we think. And I think even if you think back to when we talked about Rue and Surumi Island, we talked about the pre-Thunderbird civilization and how we really don't know what happened to them. They were people who worshipped Celestia. They were similar to Salvin Dagner. And then Kana is like, yeah, a sky nail fell on the area. And Kana is the thundering manifestation for travelers who need a refresher. So it would be curious if this pre-Thunderbird civilization also turned into Hilichurls. Because doesn't Rue talk about watching the island become covered in these monsters, including the Rift Towns?
I remember Rue saying something similar, but I don't know if it's related to specifically Hilichurls or Rift Towns.
Right, that's true. Because we know Surumi Island is covered in Gold's least favorite creation.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually brings us to a really interesting point, is that we actually go to Dadaupa Gorge for the first time besides just your traveling during the Archon quest. The Eclipse tribe actually has one of Dvalin's tears. And as travelers may or may not remember, we go on this quest collecting Dvalin's tears and purifying them in order to fix the Holy Lyre, which then gets broken again. But that's not my fault. And the tier itself is located in a chest that is on top of one of the towers located like all the way in the back of the tribe. The quest itself is called a stolen tier. So for me, that seems very suggestive that the Hilichurls might have stolen the teardrop. How they did that, I do not know. I think it's interesting that they could have touched it because we know Lisa makes note that the energy around the drops are terrible for her. She hates it. So I'm curious if they actually touched it or if someone put it there for them. Maybe the Abyss Mages, we never know. And once you get it, there is like a main Hilichurl over there. And his name is Abba Adomu. And if you translate that, Abba in Hilichurlian is before and Odomu is friend. So it's like, is being called our before friend? It makes me wonder if we knew him prior to the Cataclysm happening when we were here with our twin before we got locked away.
It's true. We could interpret it that way, or we could be like, this is an acquaintance rather than a friend. It's the before friend stage. I'm getting too linguistic on you.
No, I think that's a great point. I would have never thought of that.
But I like your theory better because then it calls into question, like, you know how Hilichurls always respond. Are the Hilichurls the same ones that they don't repopulate? It's just the same people over and over again.
Well, it also bears the question of, which I think all of us think about when we see the Eclipse tribe, is do they have any relation to the Eclipse dynasty of Conria?
Mm-hmm.
Which the Eclipse dynasty is the dynasty, I guess the rulers who were in charge of Conria when the Cataclysm happened. So our twin is known to have not ruled, but, I guess ruled beside the Eclipse dynasty, worked in the Eclipse dynasty.
Yeah, been a witness to it.
No, he was like called like a prince at that point. So like he was like kind of taken in and kind of given.
Prince or princess of Conria, that's right.
So it is interesting to think that the Eclipse dynasty might be the Eclipse tribe. I don't know. I kept thinking that all of these people are like ex-royalty. I felt really bad about it.
Isn't Piero like an ex-abyss, like a royal mage?
Yes, he's a royal mage. And that actually might lead us to the Forgotten Swords Cemetery. There might be some credibility to that when it comes to how the Conrian monsters attacked this part of Mondstadt.
Yeah, so for people who haven't seen the Forgotten Swords Cemetery, I'm assuming you haven't gotten far in the game. So I don't know if you want to be here right now and be spoiled, but you might want to back out.
Literally before our AR-16, my God.
But so the Sword Cemetery is in the center in this giant like lake area, and it is honestly one of my favorite designs in the game for a non-boss specific location, if that makes sense. Like, the Primordial Sea is pretty cool, but for an area I can just kind of walk into anytime I want, I think the Sword Cemetery is beautiful. And so it's an area that has these two giant like wood pieces, I'm assuming they're trees, that make a triangle and there's a sword stabbed into the island right underneath it. We'll obviously have a picture on our website for you because I'm doing a terrible job describing it. And there are just a ton of swords plunged into the ground around it.
Like a fuck ton.
Yeah, and we find out this is the area where Mondstadtians fought monsters coming out of Conria during the Cataclysm, which is super interesting because we've talked a lot in prior episodes about every nation seeming to have their quote-unquote entrance into Conria. And we've been trying to figure out where Mondstadt is. We know that Leeways is the chasm. We think Inazuma might be over near Watasumi or Surumi because of the way things have gone in those areas, and the Golden Wolf Lord. We know in Sumeru we have the unidentified Skynail probably in the tornado, or the Dari ruins. There's a lot. Fontaine, I actually don't know anything about Fontaines yet because Remuria I haven't dived too into. But we know all these areas. We talked a lot about where's Mondstadt, and I think at some point we might have said maybe it was Dragonspine because Durin died there.
Or Musk Reef.
Musk Reef. So Musk Reef used to be Pilos Peak, which is the mountain that Leonard the Adventurer wanted to climb. He's the adventurer referenced in Unreconciled Stars. And so Venti, which is interesting, this is very interesting. When Venti decided that he was going to play Animal Crossing and terraform Mondstadt, he removed and blew all the snow off of Pylos Peak, which then created the ocean. So Musk Reef is the top of Pylos Peak.
Yeah.
And that happened 2,600 years ago.
2,600 years ago?
Yes. It was like the first thing Venti did when he became the Animo Archon.
That's right. I was like, hold up, wait a minute. The Archon War would have ended or like been around that time. So this kind of makes sense now that right after he became Archon, we got a good timeline for the end of the Archon War.
I think we also go a little bit further into anybody who wants to dig a little bit deeper into the Pylos Peak piece. I think we go a little bit more into it in our Dragonspine episode when we start talking about Salvandagner and this adventurer too, just as a side note.
I think we might also mention it in the Dvalin or Venti episode.
Yeah.
No, we didn't do it. Did we do a Venti episode?
Yes!
Wow. Vanessa is so insulted right now.
Vanessa's gonna kill us. She's literally gonna kill us. I am terrified now.
And you know what, Vanessa, I know you're listening, and I know you're going to be on next week. So bless my heart. But Vanessa's always like, you guys haven't done a Venti episode, even though we have. So excuse me for being confused.
Oh, wow. Calling her out. Wow.
I
Way
am.
to disrespect our guest.
Hey, listen, she's my friend. She knows I love her. But also, we have done an episode on Dvalin and stuff like that. The Lawrence clan, which is very connected to Venti in the end. So listen, I'm confused all the time. But I did want to say, just on a side note, because I don't know if we mentioned this during the Lawrence clan episode, but Leonard had a BFF, Venerare, maybe, Venerare, and she actually helped him get to Pylos Peak and get as much up there as he could. She actually is a member of the Lawrence clan prior to the aristocracy taking over, and she was the one who built the OG Barbados statue in Mondstadt before the aristocracy took it down.
Viridescent Venerer?
No, it is spelled differently, though I pronounced it similarly. It's Venerare, Venerare.
Oh.
Yes. So she, it's funny because when I was reading about her on the Wikipedia, it says a questionable relationship. So I think people are suggesting her and Leonard were together, but I'm just going to call them friends.
Ooh.
But Al, it's interesting though that you bring up Musgrave, and we get to talk a little bit about Pylos Peak, because when we first started doing this, we always look into like vernaculars and stuff like that. And so I wanted to know what exactly a gorge was. I was like, what is the textbook definition of a gorge?
So it can be a narrow valley, usually accompanied by high cliffs. No, primarily a large encampment of cliffs with a river going through it, sometimes a stream. Like a great sign or a great comparison of a gorge would be the Grand Canyon in its early stages and the surrounding gorges near it. They have a large river going through it. I think it's the Colorado River, and it's basically carving its way through.
The river runs through it.
Mm-hmm. And in Genshin, we don't have a river anymore. We do have that pond, the semi-pond, but you can kind of see how the trail leading up into, what is that peak? I totally forgot the name of the peak. The trail leads in a very river-like way because, again, rivers are going to take the laziest route. And there is a waterfall leading into the Falcon Coast, which likely originally was started through this gorge. It's dried up, of course, now. So this means it's been quite a while since there's been an active river going through this. So now it's kind of more of a canyon, kind of more of a non-gorgy thing. I mean, no, it's still a gorge. It's still, water is not like, you can't have a gorge without water. You absolutely can.
It's still gorge. It's so gorge.
It's so gorge.
It's so gorge. It's Gorge Washington.
Gorge Washington.
I don't know if it makes a difference at all, but they do call it Dadaupa Lake.
Yes. And what's really cool is Dadaupa in Hilichurlian means great mountain or tall mountain. So they could be like, you could put that in front of like Dragonspine. So it could be Dadaupa Dragonspine. But for them, knowing that they've like been settled there probably since the attack on Mondstadt for the Cataclysm 500 years ago, they would have been around when it was a gorge. And the fact that this is a lake, it makes sense because it hasn't fully dried up. It really is a lake. When you look on the overworld map, you can really see like where there were inlets, probably of like how the erosion was.
In that area though, because if you do look at it from the top of the map, it does look like if you're in the Teyvat, the Genshin Teyvat interactive map, it does look like there's a lot more water there than there actually is. So you get there and you're like, oh. But all the sword cemetery is actually in the lake itself, so which could have something to do with logistics of what Vini was saying. Where's the hole to Conria? Or was the lake a melted skynail?
Yo,
Ooh.
that would be if all skynails are made out of ice.
Yeah, it doesn't really work.
Well, there's this guy now right by it. So
There's a fragment. So maybe when the Skynail came down, it knocked off a piece of dragon spine that fell there, made a gorge, and was a lake. And because it wasn't a real lake, it just started to dry up slowly. It's gonna be my little stupid theory. That means nothing to anybody but me in my head.
It means a lot to me.
Al mentioned the naming convention of Dadaupa and Hilichurls meaning large mountain. So Dadaupa Gorge means a gorge near a large mountain, which could be Salvin-Dagnur / Dragonspine, depending on when they were settled, which also means that it could be the people of Salvin-Dagnur that like weren't there when the night returned. I don't know if you remember that story.
Yeah.
Of the night that everyone was gone and he was like, everyone here died. Well, maybe they turned into Hilichurls and ended up at Dadaupa Gorge. We can also assume that Pilos Peak is also one of the mountains being referenced in this situation because we don't know how long the gorge has been there. And to the credit of, I forget if it was Al or Tiff, mentioning that it's totally possible that Musk Reef was an entrance to Conria because we have the Abyss entrance there. We also know from the Thousand Winds extension site that there's like a staircase leading from there down into the water.
I also want to hop onto that because if you take the largest dots of each settlement and connect them into a triangle, because it will make a triangle, it points directly to the extension site.
Which is interesting.
It's crack theory. There's nothing else behind it but making a triangle.
But it's just interesting to think about the fact that we don't know what's in the ocean, and we know that whatever is beneath the ocean prior to the end of the Archon War was probably something real. What was Venti trying to cover, potentially?
Ooh.
You know, we love to joke that Venti is like an aloof, drunken bard with a cat allergy. But we all know he is more than that. And he is very smart, probably gave up his gnosis on purpose. So what is he possibly hiding? We also know that he made the archipelago while terraforming, which I'm like, I still can't believe that Venti decided to just like play Animal Crossing with the nation he became in charge of. Like, it's wild to me.
I love that's your reference, Animal Crossing, terraforming.
Wouldn't you, as a goddamn god, terraform your entire... It's like Minecraft at this point. You're making your kingdom here.
Thinking about is in Animal Crossing, because that like Brandon and Tiff, I know you guys haven't played Animal Crossing. So in Animal Crossing New Horizons, the one on the Nintendo Switch, your character literally can do whatever they want to their island with a shovel. So like they like spin and put a helmet on and then have a shovel and they just go over and they make a mountain or they make a river.
Like Shovel Knight?
Not exactly like Shovel Knight, but very similar.
And that's all I'm imagining.
Very similar to Shovel Knight, a bit more intense.
So yes, that is all I could think about Venti doing. But in the archipelago, we know that was formed also from the tops of mountains that Venti cut off. Like, I feel like Venti was early Klee. And in the archipelago, if you explored during the last summer event there are like wall paintings and stuff like that. So we can assume there was some sort of civilization on these mountain peaks that Venti was trying to hide.
Is Venti Klee's mom?
I mean, he's a
Is
better mom to her than Alice. I feel like Venti would take Klee in if necessary. He wouldn't know what to do.
No, he would absolutely know what to do. Here's how you ignite bombs.
Yeah.
Here's where to throw them.
Here's gunpowder. Have fun.
That's basically what Albedo does. Albedo's like, use this type of lizard tails, Klee. It'll be better. Yes, brother. Whatever
Gina's
you
like,
say,
no,
brother.
stop.
But yeah, sorry to go on my Pilos Peak Venti little bandwagon vent here, but I just thought that was really a curious point. There are a lot of mountains in Mondstadt, despite the fact that Venti got rid of them. So I just wanted to bring it up. But back to the tribes and the gorge.
If we can just talk about the Eclipse tribe for a moment, because like you were saying before, is there a connection to the Eclipse dynasty? In the Traveler's Voice line, there's one about Eclipse tribe. It's actually like, it's a conversation with Paimon basically. And Paimon explains that all the Hilichurls in that tribe can draw an eclipse symbol and that there was a rumor that the Dadaupa of the Eclipse tribe knows why they do it. And Traveler kind of goes off to the side, like, and thinks to herself or himself, theirself, like, "Ooh, an eclipse symbol?" And kind of says it under their breath. And Paimon's like, "Wait, did you say something?" And they're like, "Oh, I was just asking what kind of soup you wanted for dinner." Like, changes the subject, which means that Traveler knows something. So that kind of seems to me a little bit more of a reason, kind of a bigger confirmation of a connection.
Oh, yeah.
And that would make a lot of sense with the placement of each settlement. Follow me on this journey. So I was looking up a lot of different battle formations because we don't know for sure of when this particular fight happened.
Battle formation.
Battle.
Battle. Right.
Al's going into like IRL battles in history, and Brandon's like the battle with the bathroom.
Let's go. Let's fight this turd.
It's a constant battle.
I'm with you, dude. I'm with you on this. We got the squatty potty for a reason.
All hail the squatty potty.
So when you look at it, it's kind of interesting because earlier today, I was going in and just like looking at what type of Hilichurls are in each tribe. In the meaty tribe, we've got a lot of the buffier Hilichurls. We go to Sleepy. It's a lot of fucking archers. And then we go to Eclipse, and it's far more of like a mix between with abyss mages. And so I was looking at different like Roman legions, historic battle formations and historic battles. And the only one that like really kind of matched was the Battle of Hastings in 1066 between William of the Duke of Normandy versus Harold Godwin, the fight that won basically the Norman conquest of England. You have your archers foremost in the front. You have your infantry. So that would be meaty tribe is infantry. Sleepy tribe would be your archers. And then the cavalry, which is usually your biggest, toughest, mama jammas. You have the Eclipse, which would make sense because your lords, your dukes, the people of power are usually in the cavalry. They're leading this through the back because, one, that's the safest place to be in war, and two, they tend to have the most powerful shit. So it's likely the abyss mage that lives in this little settlement might have been related or at least associated with the royal mages of the Eclipse dynasty.
Ooh.
Love it. So BFFs with Piero, right?
Possibly, more than likely, because if we think he's the royal mage of the Eclipse dynasty, he probably had, I was about to say legion, but maybe a legion of mages that would help him, kind of control the entirety of the nation. Because at this point, we know the ruler of the Eclipse dynasty was kind of not with it. You know what I mean? Like Ermin was kind of MIA. So someone needed to take control. Or I think I'm getting the timeline mixed up on that. But either way, they needed a large abyss army or magical mage-based army to kind of handle what was going on.
It's so funny because all I could think when you say mage is abyss mage in Genshin, and like, I wonder if that has anything to do with it too.
It's possible. I have no doubt that it's possible. Unfortunately, we don't have super concrete evidence, but just going with common logic of battle formation, knowing that like the only way, from what I understand of like all the swords that are in this lake, there's only one way they could have come through, and that's through the entrance of the gorge. And so they would have been surrounded by these formations. And so it reminds me a lot of the Battle of Hastings.
Hastings, where I bought my CDs.
Exactly, all the cities. We just don't talk to Harold anymore there. We only talk to Will.
Do you think that the people of Mondstadt / the Hilichurls at the time knew that the Cataclysm was going to happen and knew that something was going to come and fight them, and that's why they made that formation?
Well, now that I know that they were around for 1,000 years. I don't know what's happening.
I'm thinking that this might have happened in juxtaposition with Durin's attack on Dragonspine. I have a feeling that depending on where the entrance of Conria is, and honestly, there's a lot more evidence to speak to this particular region of Mondstadt. It's likely that if this attack happened during the Cataclysm 500 years ago, not an earlier time for like Salvin Dagner, it's likely that they burst through an entrance of Conria or even the Abyss here and were making their way to Durin or toward a further thing. So they had troops probably near said entrance, knowing that there was the Cataclysm is happening, and Venti and of course Dvalin are taking care of the most close and dangerous threat, because with Conria, we still don't know where it is. It could have been, miles away from there. They just happen to have an entrance. It's probably like, we know something's happening. We're going to put people there just to make sure nothing comes out. And something came out.
Well, I will say, we know for a fact that Durin happened during the Cataclysm.
Yes. I'm just saying, I don't know if the attack here in this location in Dadaupa Gorge happened during the Cataclysm, because it could be early.
That area is said that during the Cataclysm, they fought Conria monsters there.
Okay, perfect. Okay, then that cleans up the timeline for me.
So to me, it almost seems like the Hilichurls knew something was going on, whether they could sense it or whatever, and they were ready to fight. But that can kill your theory, that could kill our theory too, that the Eclipse dynasty has anything to do with the Eclipse tribe.
That's true. I mean, we do know that there are sentient Hilichurls to a certain degree. It's possible that the second they stepped through the door, they were already cursed as Hilichurls at that point, and so it was a legion of Hilichurls coming to attack. We don't know, unfortunately, so it could have been the Hilichurls at the time were there, or they came in that attack and the survivors settled in those locations.
Do you think this is where Rostam died?
So I actually do. I didn't originally. I thought that he died closer to like the Durin battle. But when I was reading the Mondstadtian Cataclysm history, it says that they sent people to fight Conrian monsters during the Cataclysm. So it almost feels like it has to be the place that it happened. Because we know Venti wouldn't risk the people.
No, absolutely not. And I think it's not confirmed in my head, but the fact that when you open up the Sword Cemetery and you get the precious chest, that big ass chest, one of the things in that chest is a fucking claymore billet.
Oh, yeah.
That's like one of the only times we get a billet in any chest. Most of the time, travelers, as you know, you'll get it from doing your weeklies or from ascensions and stuff like that, or world ascensions. It's very rare that it comes in a chest, and that feels so poignant. And the fact that you point out Rostam died during the Cataclysm, this makes a lot of sense as to why and like how he was in that situation, and that this would be his final resting place.
This is like ground zero for Rosalind becoming lost in Yora.
Damn.
And for travelers, just to give a quick note, you can unlock, so there's a seal initially around the Sword Cemetery. And through, I believe it's a world quest, you can unlock the Sword Cemetery and get this treasure chest that Al is mentioning, and actually go in and, get close up to the swords and everything by unlocking 3 elemental, I guess, statues or something. And each monument is located in one of the 3 tribes. And on top of that, too, I just wanted to note that it seems like the current people of Mondstadt know nothing about what happened over in Dadaupa Gorge. So it makes sense that Dr. Livingston, the NPC, likes to hang out over there. During Windbloom last year, one of our little side quests was called Breezy Snapshots. And one of the places we had to go take a photo was in Dadaupa Gorge. And travelers, you might remember this quest, this mini game, because you had to go take a picture of a specific type of character doing a specific item. You had to have all these points open to get all the rewards. But basically it's like some no-name local Mondstadtian asking us to take a photo up there, and he's like, I need you to do it because it's very scary over there. And he says something along the lines of like, and someone stuck all those swords over there. So it really hints to me that Mondstadtians have no idea what the history is over there, which leans even more to me into Venti not wanting people to know. I'm sure the knights know. I know that Mika has gone over there before with Ella and helped her talk to Hilichurls. It went well at first, and then Ella messed it all up.
Yeah, or it was Mika's first expedition. He got beat up by a Hilichurl.
Ugh, Ella.
But that makes sense though, because we were thinking of it's been 500 years. And then we also know that both Dvalin and Venti passed the fuck out. Like we're in deep sleep after the Durin fight. It's likely that there were very few survivors on both sides in this battle. And so those that survived might have, not lived long enough to tell the story of like what really happened, or if it did, it fell off in the years of being told to the next generations.
Well, Dr. Livingstone is an adventurer, and I think most Mondstadtians and like most people just sort of stick to the road.
Yeah.
So I think anyone like going into like a dangerous area is like someone different.
Or like they're purposely going.
And just a note too that you were saying that maybe most people died, Al. The only person we know for a fact who might have seen that area and made it back are two. Rosalind, who literally lost her mind and became the Crimson Witch of Flame, so she's not telling anyone anything. And we know that Arudalin survived, Rostam's BFF.
Mm-hmm.
And he was fucked up after he died. Like legit shit fucked.
He's like, I'm going into seclusion, bye.
I don't know if any of you have watched the show 911, but if any travelers have.
I have.
Okay, so Rostam and Arudalin give me Buck and Eddie vibes.
Oh, are they going to make out?
I hope so. Bye, Buck, for the win. They gave it to us. Now I just hope that Tommy like does something bad so that Buck can get with Eddie. But sorry. My pining is showing for my other fandoms.
You and your gay man.
I love Buck and Eddie. I love them both. I watch so many TikToks of them. But Rudolin was really messed up, like Al said, and he actually stopped working for the Knights, if I remember correctly. So chances are Rudolin was so post-traumatic stress disorder about it that he didn't talk about it to anyone either. And he might have been the last person to see it and see what was going on over there. But I just think that's interesting because it adds also to the what is Venti hiding theory of like people don't make it past there unless they're in the Knights for the most part, or Ella Musk.
Yeah, or Ella Musk. There's a commission, I believe it's called Reliable Helper, with a Shaznayan dude, Servich.
Oh yeah, right at the mouth of it. Yeah.
He says that he's a very well-known Shaznayan merchant who just wants to go and sell his stuff, and the adventurers won't let him pass through because there are a whole bunch of Hilichurls. And he's like, I'm wasting time and I'm not getting my money. Like, this needs to be fixed up. What the hell are these people doing? He's very mad, and he kind of gets us to go and clear out the Hilichurl path so this way he can go on his business. And the reason why I know this so well is because if you do it 3 times, there's 3 options, and if you choose each option and do it correctly, you do get an achievement. It's like one of those little hidden world quests, and I can't for the life of me ever do it right. So if you get that one, so you know. But yeah, it's basically through this area too. But yeah, the adventurers have stopped people from walking through that area.
I just even want to go there. There's literally like
his stuff is stuck there.
Oh yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
He's got like cargo in one of the things, because that's how you fail one of them is you burn the cargo.
Ooh.
And it's like he's like really mad about it.
Yeah, that's expensive shit. Oh man.
It's so funny how many NPCs there are in Mondstadt that are in these weird like situations with Hilichurls too, because how many times do you like find someone being surrounded by Hilichurls and they're just like covering their heads?
Yes. That's the way that they get away, is they cover their heads like, oh no. Don't take my stuff. I also thought that there was a neat connection between those 3 tribes. And during one of my readings, there's a hypothesis out there that with the eclipse, going back to the Eclipse Dynasty, Eclipse tribe kind of connection, even if there's not to specifically to the tribe. But we know that the Conria people were there at some point. People talk about the fact that there's a connection there when you go to their monument, that when you go fight their little pyro monument, or even now, if you just go visit them, go say hello. Their little area where like the monument is actually an eclipse icon, but it's very overgrown and kind of like broken, which to me makes sense that would be Conria, because it's all disjointed and all fucked up. And it's also below a stage. Like the stage is up a little bit higher from it. So it's like, well, Conria is underground. Could that have something to do with it? So one of the theories, though, is that the other tribes are related to, like we said, could they have been Skyneld or anything like that? So with one of them, though, being they have an arena where you can go and like you kind of walk in, and like as soon as you walk in, you have to like start fighting. And it's the pyro one. So to me, I was like, could that be a reference to Natlan? Because at this point, when you first do this, you don't know Natlan. And the other one is Electro, and it's south, and it's a monument in the middle of water, which to me could be in Azuma. So I'm wondering if there's the Skynell in Azuma representing those people, and then maybe there's something in Natlan we haven't seen about yet that could be up there in the fighting arena.
I like this a lot. I like where this is going.
I have a question. So there are 3 tribes, right? The Eclipse, which is like in the east. So the Eclipse is like the magic one, right? The Sleeper is like the sleepy one.
Mm-hmm.
The Meaty is like the meathead one. So which tribe would you belong to?
Sleepy.
Meaty. I like meat, and I'm strong as fuck.
The meaties, because they're the ones that have a giant pot, because that's where they make their sacrifices to eat all their meat.
Yeah.
It's some good ass food too.
That's where the arena is too.
To go into my other little side thing of my little crazy, they're related to the nations, that's north, the meaties are north. So, and their monument is Cryo. So could it actually be Shiznai and not Alan? So that goes into my other. And then the Sleeper one is south, and it's, Eclipse is southeast, I think.
Could it be Sleepy because Nahida slept?
Ooh.
Yes, it could be. She was stuck in that birdcage. And then A was stuck in a plane of euthymia. She had to have been sleeping during that time.
Only she knew why. No one else knew. Just like how only one abyss mage knows why they make the eclipse sign.
Yeah. And I don't know which tribe I would be. I would lean towards Sleepy because I'm sleepy.
I'd like to say I'm Eclipse, but I know I'd be Sleepy.
Yeah.
Same.
Which one are the dumbest ones? Because I'm going to go there.
I'm meaty for fucking sure. Let's fucking go.
You're totally meaty.
Where when would you be, Brandon?
These would be the eclipse though.
Just like Queenie said, I would love to be Eclipse, but I'm probably sleepy.
Out of all of us though, I think you would be the most suited to eclipse.
Stop. Go on.
Please continue. I'd like to hear more.
I got nothing now.
Wow.
So maybe you're really not the most Brandon.
No, I'm not. I'm definitely not.
I just know I'm meaty for sure. I love meat. Well, and fire and being beefy.
Yeah, you're definitely meaty.
I did just want to bring up a few other points of interest where Dadaupa Gorge has come up during different story quests. We actually go to Dadaupa Gorge during Venti story quest when we are trying to help Jack the adventurer find the Shield of Magnificent Honors and the Sword of Brilliant Valor, which are totally 2 fake things that Venti has made up to help Jack feel better about whatever we were doing with him. And we actually go to the area of the Meaty tribe to find both of these items. They're supposed to be super amazing, great things, but they're just like basic wooden shields and swords. We also end up in Dadaupa Gorge during Kaya's story quest, not to be confused with Kaya's hangout. Kaya's story quest comes right after the Mondstadt Archon quest, when he comes to us and tells us, well, we actually go to him and he looks concerned, and we ask him, what up, Kaya? And he says he's helped finding treasure that was his grandfather's. And he tells us all about how his grandfather was a pirate and he had this legendary sword that was from Celestia. And his grandfather buried it somewhere so that his pirate friends wouldn't fight him over it.
Mm.
The most ridiculous story. Long story short, Kai is afraid the treasure hoarders have found it. We go on this whole hunt, including finding treasure maps and clues and blah, blah, blah. And we do end up in Dadaupa Gorge from one of these treasure maps at one point. And long story short, in the end, we find out that the treasure hunt was totally made up by Kaya to trap the treasure hoarders. So that's the second time that Dadaupa Gorge comes up. And most recently, we had the event journey through Hilinimatic terrain. So this was a very recent event, just a few months ago, where there are these weird statues popping up in Dadaupa Gorge and Hilichurls are acting all sus. And so, of course, as per usual, the honorary knight of Mondstadt is sent out to check and see what the heck is going on. We use this really cool elemental tool called the Eye of Upano. And in Genshin, Upano refers to things that are in an upward direction, like height, flight, animals. It also can refer to like being sent by flying, which we do. We basically fly through the air as an elemental ball, trying to spy on the Hilichurls. So weird.
Do we know why we're trying to spy on them, though? Like, I don't remember.
We want to know what these statues that have popped up are.
Oh, yes. Okay, thank you.
The statues are placed in, at least I know, in Sleepy Tribe, in that settlement, the statue is placed like where kind of the throne is. So they're placed in areas of importance. So if I was a Knight of Favonius, I would find that concerning.
Oh,
Are we
yeah.
going to have some sacrifices here? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, definitely. And so not only do you fly through the air elementally to find out what's going on, but you also enter these domain fights. And the domain fights are interesting because every time there's like a weird, powerful Hilichurl. The first time it's a large Samatroll, and Hyman names it the mystifying Megatroll. We upset him, of course. We have to fight him, and they're bigger than normal. So the only way to fight them really is to get them to trip on Sunsetias and then fight them when they're down. But there's like a bunch of different quests, and at one point, it's really sweet. We start to get like emotions for the Samatroll, and we feel bad for them because they're alone with nothing but cabbage to keep them company, while the other Hilichurls revel outside. And every time you finish one of these like battles, you get like a title that is Hilichurlian, and you can translate it. No, I don't know. They kind of go anywhere from like, I want you, to like, Animo is helping me move weird, to Cryo will eat you, to unknown, because we don't know what la 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 means in Hilichurlian.
It's kind of just a sing-songy thing, right?
Then they just sing song when they see us at one point. And the last title, it could be, from my translations, like/want good affirmations. So it really did make you kind of feel bad for the Hilichurls in the end.
Is it more than just the unusual Hilichurl that basically is just asking us to dance? Like, they really, that's all they're kind of saying is dance, like dance. I think maybe it's just him.
So going through the Ella Musk like dailies and in the quest line, it seems like dance is part of their like being friendly with someone else. Cause like, you know, when we get the correct, like we say the correct thing to the Hilichurls in Ella Musk's little dailies, they start to dance. And so it's kind of like a more of a proving situation. Like, oh, you said something good, we're going to dance. Which I find very cute.
Yeah.
The opposite of Footloose.
Opposite of Footloose. I was trying to think of a very dance-heavy musical.
This is Just Dance.
Just Dance!
Just Dance has lore now, by the way. There's a story mode.
Oh, yeah.
In the newest
Oh my
Just
God.
Dance.
There's been lore. Where have you been?
Listen, I can only focus on Genshin lore. I can't focus on Just Dance lore.
That is true. One
Hairspray.
lore. Yes.
Hairspray. You can't stop the beat.
But it seems more of like affirmation. Dancing is affirmation, and singing and dance. Because like through this event, when we are going through the settlements, we see Hilichurls kind of like doing their day-to-day. We've got them patrolling. We've got them lazing around. Some of them are eating. There's a couple of times they're always dancing around fire and singing around fire. And that's, to me, very poignant because that has happened with humanity for thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. So it's quite like this. It's
one, expression of self, but two, it's also a way to connect to others. And like for Hilichurls, they call humans ya, or the human race ya. So if they're like ya la, we're basically good humans, right? So it's pretty interesting of like how we would assume they are very violent, but the way they communicate is very sing-songy and very dance forward.
But also, where is Kari Bear?
Where is
Yeah.
Kari Bear?
Can I just bring up my favorite Hilichurls since you brought up dancing around fire?
Yeah.
There's a pair of Hilichurl in Mondstadt that are staring at one of those pyro flowers and they're burning up because they're too close. So if you stand there, don't get too close or else they're going to start fighting you. You can see that their numbers actually start going down, like because they get too close to the fire.
But they won't move.
Yeah, they get burnt and stay there and they're just staring at it. It is the funniest thing. At least it cracks me up every time I see
That's me walking in sunlight.
it. Losing energy every time it gets you. Which tribe do you think the unusual Hilichurl would belong to?
None of them. He lives on his own.
Eclipse.
Eclipse? I mean, he's a businessman. He's wearing a suit and tie.
He's got cabbage too.
He does. He gives you cabbage.
I don't know. I would agree with Feeny. I think he's more because canonically his name is Wei. I would assume he would be from the Wei. One for spelling and like canonically. Or maybe he's just traveling and he's actually just from Conria and was a traveling salesman, got cursed and was like, this is what I know. I'm a cabbage man. I sell cabbages, my cabbages.
Why is it always cabbages? I was just gonna say, like, they're in Avatar too. Like, what the heck? It's in Fortnite too.
I mean, it's hard to make a living. It's a real hard time to make a living right now.
They represent the hair of.
I'm
Never
telling
mind.
you right now, I would not buy cabbages off of a traveling salesman.
But they would be very fresh.
Like, that's just not. No, I don't want to buy cabbage at ShopRite, like, let alone from some random guy on the street. Like,
A Hilichurl with a briefcase.
A Smart and Final. That's a grocery store.
I was like, what the fuck?
A Smart and Final.
Smart and Final. Is everything clearance and no returns?
Because
it's smart. And Final.
It's like the Stop and Shop. You stop more than you shop in there. So slow. But speaking of unusual Hilichurl, because he's wonderful, and while he may not have been in Dadaupa Gorge, he did come out in an event that I'm sad that I didn't get to do because it was all about finding him. And you got the handy handbook of Hilichurlian, which was a book written by Ella Musk. And you'd be like, wow, that little girl made a book? No. Ella Musk is apparently a name that they have repeated in that family quite often.
yep, it's like a title.
Yeah.
She's a fraud.
It's dedicated to the Ella that we know. But you get that during that whole event. And part of it is getting to know basically the unusual Hilichurl. And if you don't know who he is a very fine businessman who is literally carrying around a briefcase and he has a suit and tie that's all shattered up because he's a Hilichurl. You can approach him and he won't do anything until like you hit him and then he fights. But you can find him in 14 different places throughout Mondstadt and Liyue. If you've never encountered him, you can also use the Teyvat interactive map. I'll link it too, so this way you can do it. Go find him because he's fun as anything. And he is a big joke, apparently, he has a lot of little things that are jokes back to the first two Honkais. That also included in his archive, which I believe we've spoken about, is this bunny that has to do with Branya, I think. Did I get that right?
Sort of.
Branya's in it, though,
If
right?
continuing to prove that she knows a lot about Honkai. For someone who hates it. Guys, I want everyone to know, if you don't follow Tiff on Instagram, you wouldn't have seen this. Tiff went with me to get a Honkai Star Rail cupcake and she enjoyed it.
I might not play Honkai, but I sure do eat it, and it was delicious.
Tiff was like taking out all her aggression on the cupcake. She was like, fuck Honkai.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Ew.
I was Feeny's chauffeur.
I was like, Tiff, I want to go, but I'm afraid to drive into that area of the city. I was like, I don't mind driving in Brooklyn or Queens, but Manhattan, I don't want to do that.
That's like hell to drive through. I've done it once.
It's really not. It's just the upper east side. It's fine. We're good.
It was, yeah, Tiff did great. And she also ate a March 7th cupcake. And I just needed the whole world to know.
It was delicious. So, and we would tell you that you could go get it at Sprinkles, but you can't because now it was a limited time cupcake, but it was delicious. And I hope they bring the flavor back.
We went on like the second to last day. So sorry, not sorry. But anyway, yeah, the flavor was really good. I just want to say one thing about Ella Musk. So you brought up Ella Musk and we talked about how she's studying the language of the trolls and that she's a linguistic and she went with Mika and fucked Mika up by accident and all this jazz. And we talked about the handbook and how it's dedicated to the air. But the craziest thing about Ella Musk, so you can find Ella in the library in Mondstadt during the day. She's in there reading and chilling. You can go chat with her. There's some dailies with her. She has a sister, Dr. Edith. Dr. Edith hangs out at the Windbloom tree.
And she is a colleague of Dr. Livingstone.
Yes, and she's a colleague of Dr. Livingstone. But, sometimes you do a daily for Edith where you have to, like, go and get things out of the tree. Ella Musk, that little girl, is Dr. Edith's older sister.
Okay.
Now, I read, because it's something that has bothered us for a very long time, that little girl is the older sister of this older character. Doesn't make any sense. But I read something that in the beta, she was the same young adult model as Dr. Edith. And then they swapped her to a child one, I think I guess it just made it a little bit funnier that she was this linguistic expert as a child. They didn't change Dr. Edith. So it stayed awkward. And I think it's one of those things where they're like, let's just fuck with them.
Yeah, that's probably it. Or they forgot to switch the voice lines where Edith is now the big sister versus Ella, who's the little sister.
You guys, I think it's some timey-wimey bullshit.
Oh, no.
Just like the gut, it's Stroth. It's to do with it, Stroth.
I really do think that it was from the beta to launch, they had forgotten to switch the voice lines of like little sister, big sister. There's been a couple of those little hiccups from beta to live launch where like, oh, that probably should have been corrected at some point in development.
So what's your theory, Feeny? I want to know about how time comes into the Ella Musk Dr. Edith thing.
Oh, well, like, could she be like, a cursed Conrian? Could she have some sort of like potion or something on her? There must be a reason she wants to talk to the Hilichurls.
Yeah.
Maybe she has some sort of curse on her that keeps her from physically aging.
Do you think that she went to her childlike features like Rukkhadevata and Nahida? Like she expelled her energy and could have Benjamin buttoned it out of there?
Well, it would be interesting since Ella Musk is considered a quote unquote title. What if it wasn't? And the same Ella Musk just keeps being a baby.
It's the same one.
Just reincarnating.
It's Orphan.
I love it.
No, it's Benjamin Button.
Ben Button, whatever you prefer. But I do think that's all the time we have because we have to check our mail. Mail time. Yes, we have a few messages from travelers from Kirara this week. Our first question comes from Fox Rose, who is from Australia. They said, I had a theory about Kaya and the Conrian people. What if they were in some kind of cryogenic sleep? And for some reason, they could have been woken up years later, and that's why they've never aged. What are your thoughts?
Ooh.
So I feel like we've touched on this beforehand. I can't remember if this was the Kaya episode or not, because Kaya seems like untouched by the curse, even though he's Conrian. So it's quite possible. It could be that they're in cryogenic sleep, but that doesn't... Well, it could be that, but it doesn't explain that the second those that are of Conrian origin, when they leave Conria, they turn into Hilichurls. So, like, if Conrians that were in cryogenic sleep were then placed out of Conria, wouldn't they be cursed? It really depends on how this curse fucking works.
But I think it's more about, like, why someone from Conria could get dropped off at the farm and still be a child.
So they did like a full Fallout 4 and like they just grabbed the baby out of the cryogenic tube and just like whisked them away.
Right.
Knowing that the full-blooded Conrians are cursed to live forever is kind of like a cryogenic sleep.
Yeah, that is true.
Hiero, I'm assuming, is cursed like that. Now, Kaya, that brings a very interesting situation and case up, and it even makes you wonder.
Well,
We're assuming that Kaya is like hot. Well, Dainsleif has a lot of issues. He like minimally was like freezer burned by the cryogenic sleep if he had it. Like, but Kaya, like, for all intents and purposes, I mean, I think he's probably Kari Bear's like great grandkid. So Kaya might not even be like full Conrian where he would get that curse. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I love the idea that they could have been in a cryogenic sleep. It's very Honkai.
Maybe think of Wayward Pines when they said that. Did anybody? It's probably actually a book because everything good is, but it was a TV show. Everybody, like, you think something's really sus going on in this town. Turns out that everybody's like frozen and some people are woken up, but they're still treating it like it's whatever year, like 2020. Oh, God forbid. Everybody's yeah, hopefully it was before that. So like, let's say 2018. They still think it's that time, but it's actually like 3018 and like shit's gone bad.
Wow.
That's like the first, isn't that like the first episode? I don't know. Anyway.
It is based on a book, by the way.
It is based on a book? Okay. It was wonderful. I think M. Night Shyamalan had something to do with it.
There's also a movie, and I don't remember the name of it, but it's Chris Pratt.
Oh, yeah.
And Jennifer Lawrence, where they're on like a spaceship, and the whole thing is like they're put into a cryogenic sleep and they're supposed to be transported over X number of years to this new location to start a new life.
Like Alien.
Yes, but his pod malfunctions and he wakes up and he decides he doesn't want to be alone, so he also wakes up Jennifer Lawrence.
Which is so rude.
Fucked up.
This is so
selfish, yeah.
Sounds like Chris Pratt. Anyway.
Yeah. The rats.
Fox Rose, thank you for the question.
Thank you.
It's question/comment. Our next message comes from Wario on YouTube, who commented on our Dragonspine episode saying, yeah, Dragonspine is definitely the first difficulty spike of the game. It was hell for me because I rolled very poorly, so the only pyro character I had at the time was Amber. It felt like I had to severely handicap myself to survive and break enemies with the ice shields. I'm really curious what the Dragonspine experience is like now, though, for newer players. There's a lot more pyro characters now, and I wonder what exploring Dragonspine would be like now that we have Toma, Gaming, and Chavrus.
Ooh.
As someone who started Genshin, what was it, 2021 or 2022? When did we start the podcast?
No, not 21, 22.
2022. So I started in February of that year. I had a bunch of pyro characters at my disposal.
Wow, wasn't that nice?
Right? I had Jinyan. I had Xiangling. I had Amber. I had Bennett. I had a lot. But Amber came in so fucking clutch. I'm not gonna lie. I love Amber. High key, great pyro support or sub DPS. It depends on how you build her. She saved my ass when I had to fight the fucking ice boar. I died so many times.
I remember you playing her in co-op.
Yeah, I mean, I still love playing with Amber. I'll still do it from time to time, depending on like the situation and the team comp. I would say it's slightly easier, mostly because I had everyone right here tell me, don't go to Dragonspine. I had everyone telling me, don't do it yet. You're not there. And when you do, you're going to need us. So it's like, okay, I had the experience of my elders. You are not my elders. You just happen to play the game first.
Well, we are your elders.
You know, even though you might get those characters, a lot of them you can't level up until you've been into other areas. You still have to do Dragonspine pretty early. So you might have Gaming, but you're not in Shenyu Vale yet which I think you need to be there to get his ascension items. But you might not have all those things at your disposal because you're still very early on. I think it would still be difficult because if you do it in like the normal order and you don't have people telling you don't do it yet, it's scary. It's difficult, and especially it makes no sense the fact that you have a pyro character who just freezes. Like, just can't they just put anything on fire? Nope. They can only do it on their little lampy things. So I think it would, well, I think in theory it would be cool, like to think like, oh, well, yeah, if you have the, Gaming, you could just really like breeze through it. But unless you saved it, I don't think you would be able to get those characters up very high.
Yeah, if you have Amber, you might not have played enough to get other pyro characters, right?
Right. And I was going to say too, though, like and I know I've told this story multiple times on and off the podcast, but I could always remember like being in Discord and screen sharing and flying into Dragonspine and Brandon being like, no, turn around.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. But I remember very specifically that the Dragonspine enemy, the first one I saw, was level 32. And I probably wasn't even like at 16 for co-op yet. So I do think that a lot of people probably do end up saving Dragonspine for the end, or for later on at least. I'm sure most people are getting through like Mondstadt leeway, getting to Inazuma, getting frustrated with the Inazuma boss fights because they are hard, and then maybe coming back to Dragonspine at that point. So you might have like a Toma or a Jinyan or a Zhongling that you've been able to level up a little bit. I know I went in to Dragonspine with Jinyan, but that first time when Brandon was like, turn around, I totally was flying in his Kaya. Like the worst person.
It was released after the leeway, by the way, so it's designed to be after leeway.
Oh, okay.
It may be designed that way, but my dumbass did not treat it so.
Yeah, I'm sure most people didn't.
I probably started it while I was in Mondstadt, but I probably didn't finish it until I was like in Inazuma. Because the Boar King.
Fucking tough.
I got through Dragonspine because of co-op.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me not lie about it. It was all Brandon. And then I have paid it back and done the terrible things with other people.
I don't know anyone but Brandon, I think, that's done that by themselves.
I think I looked it up online. So.
But you didn't have a co-op friend to do it with.
No, I did not.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, that's why I was like, stop. Don't do it. Let me help you.
Thank you, Wario, for your message. Our last message comes from PC Thomas 2, who also commented on one of our YouTube videos, and their question is actually in reference to our Footloose movie discussion from earlier in the season, which reappeared today. They wrote, I don't know if y'all know, but Footloose is actually loosely based on a real town. Elmore City, Oklahoma in the US banned dancing when it was founded in 1898.
That's crazy.
I hate that I don't know this.
Yeah.
Are you from Oklahoma? Isn't that like part of like your like
Oklahoma.
upbringing?
Yes. I'm from a little town called Hera. I do not know this. Like, I am shook. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
For that knowledge. I am not surprised, by the way.
I think it's crazy that something that seems so ridiculous in a movie that we said how ridiculous of a premise it was actually a true thing. The weird ass people we are.
It's what the devil does.
Dancing for the devil.
I could have seen it happen during the Prohibition.
It's very Baptist.
Wait, what town are you from, Brandon, again?
That's your old
Hera.
life.
Hey, Brandon, it's only an hour and 15 minutes from where you are from.
I wish that you said it was only a mile from where
What do you mean?
Elmore City. It's only an hour and 15 minutes from where you grew up. Like, how have you never been there?
You know, that's my destination is Elmore City when I'm in Oklahoma. I'm not going to Dallas. I'm not going to I'm going to Elmore City.
Next vacation, guys, we gotta go. It's a very little town, but it looks like it at least has a Dollar General, which is good.
Wow.
That describes Oklahoma.
And their bank is called the Old Glory Bank, so I'm here for it.
Nice.
Glory Bank? Oh, did they have a glory hole?
Blue Daisy Flowers and Gifts. We can stop there. If you're from Elmore City,
Ooh.
anyone, let us know the hot spots.
You know, one of my favorite places in speaking of just the names of crazy things, like made me think of it in New Jersey. There's a town called Tuckahoe, and there's an inn, and it's called the Tuckahoe Inn. And you drive past it when you go down the shore, like when you go really far down the shore, and it always makes me laugh every time. I'm like, yeah, I'll Tuckahoe Inn.
They reference that on Drag Race all the time.
Really?
Yes.
Owen.
I love it. There's like a nuclear power plant behind it. It's so good.
But PC Thomas too, thank you so much for your comment and for educating us, because that's amazing.
I'm so sorry, Thomas.
On that note, travelers, that is all the time we have for today. Join us next week as we talk all about Kaching. Until then, travelers, safe journeys. We'll see you next time.
Bye, Oklahomans.
Oh, wait, not even nerds. Damn.
Just all of them.
What's that?
Going back to my roots. Let's go to Bricktown.